Today I'll be talking about RescoreBERT discriminative speech recognition rescoring with BERT, a paper from Amazon. Second pass rescoring is an important component in ASR systems that reranks and best outputs from first-pass decoder. In previous videos, we talked about improving first-pass decoding by fusing external language model. This video only focuses on rescoring the embed list from first-pass decoding. In recent years, masked language model (MLM) such as BERT has received great success in various NLP tasks, but it has not been widely applied in rescoring tasks in ASR. Typically, discriminative loss function, such as minimum word error rate or MWER, is used in training second-pass rescoring model. With previous work with MWER mainly used on unidirectional LMs such as LSTM. Meanwhile, BERT showed promising results on rescoring due to pre-training and bidirectional feature. Salazar showed pre-trained BERT model, which is then fine-tuned on Libre speech data, can outperform BERT trained from scratch on the same data. However, there's no attempt to train BERT-style rescoring with discriminative objective, such as MWER, to leverage benefits from both approaches. The goal of this work is to explore methods for training BERT-style rescoring models with discriminative objective. In this section, two non-discriminative loss functions and two discriminative ones are presented. To explore the effectiveness of loss functions, the authors explore two different ways for training rescoring models. Either train the models with discriminative loss only, or train the model with combined MLM distillation loss and discriminative loss. Pseudo-log likelihoods is a traditional non-discriminative loss used for training and inferring with masked language model. Given a sequence E, the pseudo-log likelihood of the sequence is defined as sum of negative log likelihoods of each token in this utterance given bidirectional context. Lower log likelihood scores indicate more probable sequences. For the second non-discriminative loss, so calculating the pseudo log likelihoods of a sequence involves calculating score for each and every tokens, which is computationally expensive, especially with long sequence. This masked language model distillation approach aims to eliminate the expensive calculation by approximating the pseudo log likelihoods score only using one start of the sentence CLS token. First, a sentence is encoded by BERT model and represented by hidden state of the CLS token in last transformer layer, denoted as GI. In equation 3, an additional layer is added on top of this CLS hidden states to produce a score SIL. The SIL is predicted pseudo likelihood approximation. Note that the calculation of any non-discriminative loss only requires text data. Differently, discriminative loss requires and best hypothesis from first-party coder and their final scores. For each hypothesis, its final score is the linear combination of the first pass score and second pass score. The beta here controls the second pass contribution. The final scores are then used to calculate discriminative loss and the minimum word error rate, MWER, or, or proposed MWED, minimum word error rate distribution. Also note that the calculation of any discriminative loss involve and best list, which require pair speech text data. Pair speech text data is much less than text-only data. A traditional widely used discriminative loss is minimum word error rate or MWER. The MWER loss represents expected number of relative word errors for n best hypothesis. In equation 6, Pi denotes the normalized posterior probability of each hypothesis. Pi is calculated using final score of each hypothesis. In equation 7, epsilon h is average word error rate across n best list. Intuitively, MWER training assigns full probability mass to the hypothesis with minimum word error rate in ideal case. The author also proposed a novel discriminative loss MWED. The goal of this loss is to mimic the distribution of n-best word errors through the predicted scores. Therefore, ranking by final scores should ideally be exactly same as ranking by word errors, which could potentially lead to better score interpolation and evaluation. MWED loss is cross entropy from scores to word errors, which is equivalent to optimizing Kullback-Leibler diversion between the two distributions. Equation 9 and 10 shows the relative distribution of word errors and predicted scores over the embedded list. Though about two discriminative losses are used to train BERT-style rescoring model. In first training approach, only discriminative loss is used. As discussed above, calculating pseudo log likelihood scores is computationally expensive. Instead, the authors use the score from the CLR token to minimize discriminative loss. Another training approach is to use the combined masked language model distillation loss and discriminative loss. The first, the authors present BERT model with masked language model distillation on text-only data to approximate the expensive pseudo-log likelihood using the CLR token only. Second, the author proposed a normal training loss by adding the massive language model distillation loss on top of discriminative loss. In equation 12, masked language model distillation loss is similar to cross-entropy regularization added to MWER loss and controlled by the hyperparameter lambda. The result shows that the MLM distillation retraining is much more important than adding the additional distillation loss. In this section, experiments were conducted to evaluate accuracy and latency of the proposed method. In these experiments, the authors evaluate these approaches on 4 datasets in multiple domains and locales to test its general applicability. Datasets include 1 public dataset, LibreSpeech, and 3 internal datasets, 1 for information domain in English, and 2 for information and navigation domains in Japanese. Top table show absolute word error rate on public LibreSpeech data. In the top table, the baseline is a non-discriminative BERT rescoring model. It achieved word error rate 4.67 on test clean and 16.15 on test other data. Differently discriminative BERT rescoring models significantly improve upon non-discriminative baselines. For example, MWER achieves word error rate 4.42 on test clean and 15.87 on test other. Interestingly, MD-MWER and MD-MWED approaches outperform computationally expensive PPL approach, where we calculate the score by calculating the score, where we calculate the sentence score by calculating the score of each and every token within the utterance. The bottom tables show relative word error rate reduction on internal data. The baseline is LSTM rescoring model. Discriminative BERT models perform better than baseline and non-discriminative BERT models. When comparing proposed MD-MWED to traditional MD-MWER, MD-MWED performs better than MD-MWER on LibreSpeech and information English, but MD-MWED is worse on both JR datasets. One potential explanation for MWED being less effective for JR is that the character error rate distribution is spikier than the word error rate distribution, resulting in less stable gradients from the relative entropy. Latency is an important aspect for deploying BERT-style rescoring models in swimming application. This session explores a strategy to reduce the latency of BERT rescoring models with marginal reduction in WER gains. First, the author distilled a general 170 million parameters BERT to either 17 million BERT of 5 million BERT model. Reducing the size significantly leads to reducing latency significantly. Second, they adapt the smaller model to internal datasets to reduce the mismatch between general data and internal data. To achieve the low latency, the author performed the discriminative training with MD, MWER or MD, MWED. Starting from this smaller model, to maintain the WER gains of 170 million BERT model, this big model is used to compute the target pseudo log likelihood scores. Top table show relative word error rate reduction of BERT rescoring model with different size over an LSTM rescoring model. As expected, the smaller BERT performed worse. Finally, 5 million BERT model is the worst, but the difference of 3% is unnoticeable. Bottom table shows average latencies in milliseconds with different sequence lengths. For example, with the sequence length of 16, LSTM rescoring model has latency 9.7, while BERT rescoring model at the 5 million one has latency 7.6. Interestingly, 5 million BERT is faster than LSTM rescoring model, and 17 million BERT is slower but comparable. Therefore, 5 million BERT is superior substitute for LSTM rescoring. In conclusion, this paper represents the method to train BERT rescoring model with discriminative objective functions. Results shows that discriminative training significantly improved BERT rescoring. The authors propose a novel loss by adding masked language model distillation loss on top of discriminative loss to further reduce W word error rate. The author also proposed MWED loss, which is strong substitute of MWER loss. Lastly, he showed how to further distill BERT model to achieve lower latency for streaming application while maintaining word error rate improvements.